So welcome everyone to our group's work from our own casual loop diagram. Of course, our group 6. But before or all of the contents of our report, I must introduce our members. First of all, we have Mark Jonas. Next, we have yours truly, Harry Margil Calado, and of course, Rada Berlin Otor. Um, we will now discuss the executive summary of the whole report. The activists, politicians, and clergy are calling for an investigation into the ongoing coal mining activities on the Philippine island of the Simara amid a series of COVID-19 cases originating from the site. The first case on the island and in the province of Antique came from mine operator SMPC's hospital and was confirmed on April 7. Between the first case and May 15, when Simirara was under enhanced community quarantine or the ECQ, the end mining activity was therefore not permitted. The SMPC reportedly continued operating, including loading a foreign vessel with coal for export. The company says it acted in accordance with the government's COVID-19 protocols and in coordination with the relevant agencies. As of May 12, the Antique province had 17 confirmed coronavirus cases. 9 of them from Simirara. Calls have been made to stop the coal mining and shipment operations in Simirara until no new infections are recorded and all confirmed cases are closed. So next we will move on to the main juicy part of the report, and of course our causal loop diagram. Um, we will first start with the B0. So for B0, the further mining operations in Simarara Island will lead to an increase in the coal supply. There is a delay signifying that this is not an immediate process since the mining operations in Simarara Island require a significant amount of planning, preparation, and execution, which may take months and even years before coal can be extracted and supplied to the market. This increase in coal supply, assuming that demand remains constant, will result in a surplus of coal. An increase or surplus of any product in a market typically leads to a decrease in price since there is an excess supply of the product relative to the demand. As coal price decreases, it becomes more affordable for consumers, leading to an increase in demand for coal. This increased demand for coal in turn will lead to further mining operations in Simarara Island to meet the rising demand for the commodity. This is a balancing feedback loop because it manifests a self-correcting behavior and tends towards equilibrium. I will pass the floor to Wella to further explain R0 and R1.
Thank you so much, Harry. So for the first reinforcing loop or R sub-zero, increasing mining operations in Semirara Island could result in higher levels of acid mine drainage or AMD, which can contaminate nearby water sources and cause damage to habitats or habitat destruction, leading to an increase in environmental degradation. So this increased environmental degradation will negatively impact the local community, including reduced air and water quality, health risks. So this environmental degradation will lead to social unrest or protests. These protests can spark sustainable campaigns such as promoting green mining practices, effective waste management, and reducing harmful mining chemicals being used in the mining operation. However, this is not an immediate process. That's why there's a delay sign, since this necessitates open dialogues and concerted efforts for demonstration and directed protests for sustainability. So, through sustained efforts towards sustainable campaigns, mining operators and policymakers can recognize the concerns of the local community and the unfavorable or adverse effects of the mining operations and the environment. So, as a result, they can implement changes to support sustainable practices or take the inputs of the protesters, leading to more responsible or sustainable mining operations in Semirara Island. So, again, this is not an immediate process since it involves collaboration between different opposition groups, stakeholders, mining operators, policymakers, and communities. So one evidence for this causality is the case of the Tampakan Copper Gold project in the Philippines. The project is owned by the Secretary's Mines, INC or SMI. It has been subjected of protests and sustainable campaigns since its inception. And the project involves extraction of copper and gold from a massive open pit mine. So this mining operation has raised concerns about the impact on the environment, the displacement of local communities, and the violation of human rights. Of indigenous peoples. So, despite the protests and concerns, the project has continued to operate since, with the help or with the support of the Philippine government. However, sustained efforts towards sustainable campaigns have led to some changes in the mining operations. For example, the SMI has implemented measures to mitigate the negative impacts of its operations on the environment, such as the implementation of waste management to reduce the water consumption and the adoption of progressive rehabilitation plan to restore the land affected by the mining operation. So the change in one variable, such as the increased public protest, which leads to the improvement or increased in other variables like more responsible or more or further operation coal mining operation in Semirara Island. So this creates a reinforcing loop where the change in one variable or the change or impacts on the variables like the environment, the community, further, so on, is gradually amplified over time. Now I'm passing the floor to Jonas Baon to report the succeeding loop. Thank you.
So thank you, Bella, for that explanation. So now we move on to our next reinforcing loop, which is the R sub one. So yeah, as we can see, the further coal mining operations and the Semirara Island will eventually lead to an increase in land disturbances. So of course, if there is an increase of, let's say, land disturbances, there will be an also an increase of soil erosion and other possible calamities that will be caused by, of course, the rampant increase of land disturbances. So with that, it will lead to more, of course, land disturbances since the area is mostly consisting of soil that are being disrupted and also being stabilized. So as we can see, it is a reinforcing loop. The reason being its initial change is to reinforce or let's say amplifying throughout the loop. So yeah, thank you for. Now we move on to the next loop, which will be discussed by the next member.
So thank you, Jonas, for that, for the reinforcing loop two. So for the increase in land disturbance caused by the mining operations, as you can see, will lead to the decrease in agricultural productivity, since this can affect the soil quality and fertility of the agricultural lands, making it more difficult to grow plants. The decrease in agricultural productivity will lead to a subsequent decrease in crop yields, because when soil is compacted or eroded, it becomes less able to absorb and retain water and nutrients, which are essential for plant growth, making it more difficult to yield crops. This decrease in yield crops will lead to a decrease in agricultural productivity, because this is a reinforcing loop, because the effect in one variable is reinforced in the next. So I will be passing the floor to the next reporter for R3.
Thank you, Harry. So for the R sub 3, when COVID-19 cases increase, it becomes more important to identify infected individuals or Filipinos, no, in this context, to prevent the virus from spreading further. So this leads to an increase in testing and contact tracing efforts. However, this increase in testing and contact tracing can also lead to an increase in reported cases of COVID-19. This is because when more people are getting tested and contact traced, more cases are detected, including the asymptomatic cases that may have uh, that may have uh, that may have undetected or that may have gone undetected otherwise. So this can contribute to the rise of reported COVID-19 cases. Additionally, contact tracing also help to isolate individuals who may have been exposed to the virus, which can also contribute to the increase in reported cases. So, on one hand, contact tracing may reduce the number of detected COVID-19 cases, but it may also help increase the number of recorded COVID-19 cases. To support this causality, a study by the researchers at the University of California at San Francisco found that testing and contact tracing efforts can lead to an increase in the reported number of cases for COVID-19. So the study analyzed data from San Francisco, where the city had implemented an aggressive or mass testing and contact tracing program. So the study found that as testing and contact tracing efforts increased, the reported cases of COVID-19 also increased. So the researchers noted that the increase in reported cases was due to the identification of asymptomatic cases that may have gone undetected otherwise. So the study's findings suggest that testing and contact tracing efforts are crucial in controlling the spread of the COVID-19 cases. However, it is also important to note that the reported numbers are only a fraction of the actual cases in the community. So as many cases go undetected due to the lack of testing and contact tracing. So again, this creates a reinforcing loop where an increase in testing and contact tracing efforts can lead to increase or reinforcement in the number of reported cases of COVID-19. Now I passing the floor to again Jonas Baon to report the succeeding loop. Thank you.
So now we move on to the next loop, that which is the R sub 4. So yeah, with the increase of COVID-19 cases, this will catalyze further implementation of the ECQ, or the enhanced community quarantine. So with the further ECQ implementation, this will hamper the operations of non-essential services, leading to a decrease in the said variable. So ECQ measures are often involve restrictions on the movement of non-essential businesses, because they are often stricter than other protocols. So this, of course, can result to the reduction of revenue. The overall revenue of certain businesses or the non-essential businesses will be affected. So the reduced revenue may also catalyze an increase in business closure, resulting to bankruptcy. That's why if we are going to observe during the quarantine period, especially during lockdowns, there were numerous businesses that were affected financially. So they went bankrupt, uh, as to say. So of course, this is because when businesses are unable to generate enough revenue to sustain their operations, they may be forced to shut down, or to be bankrupt. So with the increase in business closure or bankruptcy, this will lead to a decrease in, of course, the employment opportunities. Because when businesses are forced to close down due to the lack of revenue or bankruptcy, they may uh, they may have to lay off their employees, resulting to downsizing in certain corporations. So this means that people who were previously employed by the business will lose their jobs. So which will, of course, lead to, of course, the employment opportunities. The, of course, negatively affecting the negative impacts of the said variable to the employment opportunities will result in, of course, the decrease in consumer spending. The decrease in that so to say, meaning to say that the decrease in employment opportunities will decrease consumer spendings, because when people lose their jobs, they will have time to focus more on essential needs, essential goods, which includes housing, clothes, healthcare, and foods. So the decrease in consumer spending will also, but that's why the let's say decrease in consumer spending will lead to the reduction of non-essential goods. So with fewer people spending money on non-essential items, items that rely on consumer spending will experience a decline in the said variable. So this is of course a reinforcing loop, because the change in one variable leads to further changes in the other variables that are involved in the loop. So with that, I pass the next loop to the next member. Thank you so much.
So for the B1, the decrease in revenue will lead to more business closures. More business closures can have a ripple effect on the employment opportunities, because the closure of businesses will result in job losses for their employees. As a result, people may have less money to spend on goods and services, leading to a decrease in consumer spending. This decrease in consumer spending will lead to decreased revenue, since consumers will limit their purchasing abilities. This is a balancing loop, because the initial change was then counteracted or set off throughout the loop. Now I'm passing the floor to the next reporter for R5.
Again, thank you, Harry. So for the fifth reinforcing loop, the unregulated mining operations in Semirara Island can be worsened by the increase in violations of the quarantine protocols. When quarantine protocols are violated, there's a higher risk of COVID-19 transmission among mining workers or among miners. So this can disrupt the operations and lead to a lack of oversight or enforcement of such regulations, allowing the unregulated mining practices to flourish. Without proper regulation, mining operations can or may not follow the necessary health and safety precautions, such as wearing masks, social distancing, which are indeed important or integral quarantine protocols. As unregulated mining operations worsen, there's a higher likelihood of quarantine protocol violations, since workers may not adhere to the necessary health and safety precautions. So this creates a reinforcing loop where the increase in one variable, which is the unregulated mining operations, leads to an increase in another variable, which is the violation of quarantine protocols, which further increases the initial variable, which is again the unregulated mining operations. Now I'm passing the floor to Jonas Bowen to report the next. Thank you.
Thank you, Bella, for that explanation. So now we move on to the next loop that we have. So yeah, let's tackle that already. So with the further implementation of the ECQ, or the enhanced community quarantine, this will eventually lead to the exacerbation of unregulated or unhampered unhampered mining operations in Semirara Island, where the province's first case of the COVID-19 virus was recorded on April 7, 2020. So in the article's given context, despite the island being subjected to vigorous ECQ implementations, um, reports about the unregulated mining operations persisted on the island, especially the reported operations of, let's say, smaller boats, coal mining loads of vessels for exportation, and also with private planes. So with that, let's move on to the next loop that will be discussed by the next reporter.
Thank you, Jonas. So as we can see, the increase in unregulated Semirara Island and Semirara mining operations during the ECQ may increase in COVID-19 cases due to the close contact among workers and the lack of adherence to the health and safety guidelines and unregulated mining operations on the island. So for the next one, I will be passing the floor to Wella for the next one.
Again, thank you, Harry. So, next we have the unregulated mining, Semirara mining and quarantine protocol violation. So, in this context of Semirara mining operations, non-compliance with the quarantine protocols may result in higher number of COVID-19 cases. Quarantine protocols or measures are implemented to contain the spread or the further spread of um, the virus by isolating the infected individuals and those who came uh, close contact with them. So disregarding these protocols increases the likelihood of transmitting the virus to other people. So this failure to comply with these quarantine protocols may result in legal consequences or legal repercussions. Um, so that's for this causality. Like parang tatlong variable. The unregulated Semirara mining, actually four, quarantine protocol violation, COVID-19 cases, and legal repercussions. Now I'm passing the floor to Jonas Baon.
Thank you, Wella. So now we move on to the next group that we have. So yeah, with the increase of the said unregulated Semirara mining operations, this will uh, this will lead to the exacerbation of occupational hazards. So this exacerbation of said occupational hazards will eventually lead to an increase in, as said earlier, in legal repercussions. So there is a delay sign that that it is not an immediate process, since based on the article's premise, there will be dialogues throughout, or let's say there will be a full-blown investigation about the said unregulated mining operations and the occupational health and safety concerns of the SMPC. Now let's move on to the next.
So thank you, Jonas, for that. So I will be doing the last one. So the increase in unregulated Simirara mining operations further paves the way to the unhampered shipment operations in the Simirara, where vessels are loaded with coal for exportation. Based on the reports, this further practice of unhampered shipment operations will then face legal repercussions. There is a delay symbol signifying that this is not an immediate process. So moving on, we are going towards the guide questions now. For the first one, we have what is the article all about? So the article discusses or calls for an investigation into the allegations that the coal mining proceeded on the Semirara Island in the Philippines, even though the area was supposed to be subject to rigorous quarantine because of the COVID-19 outbreak. Even when mining was prohibited, a number of confirmed COVID-19 cases were said to have come from the location. The coal mining and transportation should cease until all proven cases have been resolved and no new illnesses are reported from the island. According to activists, religious leaders, and elected officials. So for questions two, I will be passing the floor to the next reporter.
Thank you, Harry. So for the second guide question, why is there a call for an investigation into ongoing coal mining activity on Semirara Island? So the investigation into the coal mining operations in Semirara Island was prompted by the number of verified COVID-19 cases that were linked to the mining area. So there have been growing concerns about the quarantine compliance, the health and safety procedures, and the overall management of the mining operations following the first reported case of COVID-19 in the Antique province on April 7. So the patient was reported to come from Semirara Island where the coal mining operation was ongoing. So from April 7 to May 15, there was an increase or surge in COVID-19 cases in Antique, which has raised serious concerns about the risk of uh, transmission within the mining site and the potential impact on the surrounding communities. As a result, um, uh, calls have been made for a thorough and full-blown investigation into the situation, including the evaluation of the quarantine protocols, health and safety standards, and the overall management of the mining operations on the said island. Now I'm passing the floor to Jonas Ballon to report the next guide question. Thank you.
Thank you, Bella. Now we move on to the next question, which is question number 3. So yeah, it says, do you agree with the actions of the government regarding the issue? Why and why not? Now, upon examining the article carefully, I have noticed that both of the local and national governments have yet to propose a response regarding the issue at hand. However, I do agree with what Virgilio Sanchez or Virgilio Bong Sanchez, which is the president of Saibantique movement, said. So he stated that the the COVID-19 cases were uh, the cases of COVID-19 in the island were results of the unhampered operations of the SMPC. So that being said, I also agree with what the Congresswoman Loren Legarda is imposing on the issue at hand. So she is imposing that there must be a full-blown investigation into the issue, and on let's say, and in fact, in April 19, she tweeted in her Twitter account that the following, which stated that into Semirara coal mining, the entry of Chinese vessels, previous deaths caused by unsafe mine operations, possible violations of health protocols during COVID, transparency in using national wealth funds. So she also requested that the island be placed under strict lockdown. So yeah, to summarize all that has been stated so far, I do agree with the national government uh, decision, which is imposing a full-blown investigation about the unsustainable mining of the SMPC, that they are clearly breaking strict quarantine protocols, resulting to more COVID-19 cases in the Philippines. So yeah, let's move on to the next question, which will be discussed by the next report. Thank you.
So thank you for that, Jonas. So moving on to the next question, which is how does the systems thinking approach help in understanding the relationship between the mining activity on Semirara Island and the rise of COVID-19 cases on the island? So it is easy to comprehend the connection between the Semirara Island's mining activity and the increase in COVID-19 cases using a systems thinking approach. The method makes it possible to examine the links between the many systems elements, such as the operations of the mining firm, governmental regulations, and the environmental and worker health. By looking at these components, it is feasible to pinpoint the elements that lead to the virus's transmission and create plans to stop the outbreaks in the future. For question 5, I'm passing the floor to the next reporter.
Thank you so much, Harry. So for question number 5, if citizens in the mining if the citizens in the area remain silent about the issue, would you think the government will take immediate action in the case? Why or why not? As the saying goes, silence is complicity. This holds true even in politics, where staying silent on an issue is akin to endorsing the status quo. The lack of action from the government on any ongoing mining operation may be partly due to the passive or recessive stance of the locals about the issue. In this context, according to the article, the provincial governor, Rodora Cadiao, said that the local government has no hand on the mining operation, and what they can only do is to monitor the environmental standards of the said mining operation. And if there are indeed transgressions, violations, or complaints, then such complaints or violations will be directed to the DNR, or Department of Environment and Natural Resources. So despite the issue persisting for years and being brought to their attention multiple times, they have yet to take a concrete action. So this indicates that the government may only prioritize other issues or matters that have more explicit political or economic advantages. So unless um, there's an extreme or substantial external pressure or demand from the public officials coming from the national scale or the general public, then we can anticipate to such an extent that the government will not take immediate action about the situation. So, therefore, it is very crucial for citizens to hold their government and the mining operators accountable and to demand action, lest they remain complicit in perpetuating the issue. So, really, instead of expecting more from these politicians, I'm expecting more from the people. I'm expecting more from the general public to put pressure on these politicians to make sure things change. That's all for me. Thank you so much. Now I'm passing the floor to the next reporter. Thank you.
All right, so let's move to the last question, please. So yeah, thank you. So yeah, today that there is a rampant exploitation of land resources through unsustainable mining. As a student of STS, how would you provide solutions to this issue? So for me, as a student, I think the best possible solution is to let our voice be heard by spreading awareness, about this indiscriminate mining that has been affecting our natural resources. So yeah, sharing the essential informations that we have acquired through our environmental classes, particularly in STS. So yeah, this type of matter has to start somewhere. So who better start spreading awareness than us students, right? So yeah, also there is a we have a lot of access to technology which can be utilized into preaching or saying or spreading awareness about the said issue. So yeah, as a student, I think we should share awareness to other people who might not know about this, because this issue is very alarming, for it affects the overall state of the Philippines, especially during the quarantine period, where they are clearly breaking protocol, which contributes to further cases of COVID-19 in the country, which of course let's say leads to further implementations of long-term lockdowns that will last for years, which we experienced for 2 years. So yeah, I think the best possible solution for us students is to spread awareness and uh, put, as mentioned by the past reporter, put pressure on certain authorities to do something about this case that is at hand. So yeah, with that, this ends our reporting to the guide questions. So thank you guys for listening and have a good one. Thank you.
Wait. May question 7 pa yun.
Ay, wait,
May question 7 pa. May yung pasal, may dinagdag sa Wela.
Alright, sige, sorry.
May mo rin ulitin yan sa 6.
Pwede sa last part na lang.
Sa 6, sa 6 lang, 6 lang.
Sa last part na lang.
Ah.
So yeah, with this ends my presentation. Now we move on to the next question.
So number 7 is give the principles of green mining and its importance. So the term green mining describes the process of obtaining minerals and resources while reducing their negative effects on the environment and fostering sustainability. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions using less water and recycling or reusing resources are all part of the green mining tenets. Green mining is significant because it has the potential to lessen the negative effects of conventional mining, lessen the negative effects of conventional mining techniques, which can result in habitat destruction, soil erosion, and water pollution, and a loss of biodiversity. Green mining encourages less carbon footprint and more environmentally friendly mining methods that also conserve natural resources and foster long-term economic success. So thank you for listening to our report. That is all for our report for today. Thank you for listening, and we hope you had a great rest of your day. Thank you.